I stared at her. Mom, I drove 600 miles for you. She crossed her arms, slow and deliberate, the way she always did when she had already made up her mind and didn't want a discussion. You weren't on the list, Brittany. My name is Brittany Collins. I'm 34 years old and I work as a freelance graphic designer from a small apartment in Denver, Colorado. It's not a glamorous life. My desk sits next to a window that overlooks a parking lot. I eat lunch alone most days. I stay up late finishing client work while the rest of the building goes quiet. But I pay my own bills, I meet my deadlines, and for a long time, I told myself that was enough. I've always been the responsible one in my family. The one who remembered birthdays without Facebook reminders. The one who sent actual cards with handwritten notes inside. The one who called first, even when no one called back. I drove from Denver to Missouri more times than I can count, not because anyone asked me to, but because I believed that family was worth the effort. I believed that showing up mattered. My younger sister Lila never had to try that hard. She stayed close to home, about 20 minutes from Mom's house, and that proximity did what years of my effort never could. She was there for grocery runs and last-minute errands. She sat at the same Sunday dinner table every week. And without anyone saying it out loud, she became the favorite. Not because she was kinder or more thoughtful, just because she was there and I wasn't. Growing up, I felt invisible at family gatherings. Not ignored in a dramatic way, just overlooked. I wasn't loud enough to command a room. I wasn't the child who got the funny story told about her at the dinner table. I sat in corners and watched everyone else take up space. And I told myself it was fine. I told myself I didn't need the spotlight. I just wanted to feel like I belonged in the same room as the people who shared my last name. I wasn't rich. I wasn't glamorous. I had no grand achievements to wave around at holiday dinners, but I had something they never gave me credit for: patience. Quiet, stubborn, long-burning patience, and a memory that never let go of a single detail. If you've ever been the one who tries harder than everyone else just to feel included, this story is for you. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this community was built for people who know exactly what it feels like to give everything and still be treated like an afterthought. Do you know what it feels like to drive 600 miles and get turned away at the door? Tell me in the comments. I am reading every single story. And if you've ever gone the extra mile for a family that didn't notice, click hype or like this video. You deserve to be seen. I had been planning this trip for 3 weeks. Mom's 60th birthday wasn't something I was going to miss. I took unpaid time off from 2 client projects, reorganized my entire schedule, and set my alarm for 4 in the morning the day I planned to leave. I had also spent 2 weekends searching online and in antique shops for a vintage locket, because years ago, Mom had pointed to one in a magazine and said, "I've always loved that style." I don't know if she even remembered saying it, but I did. I always did. I packed the locket in a small velvet box, wrapped it in pale gold tissue paper, and tucked it into a gift bag with a handwritten card. The card said things I had been wanting to say for years: that I was proud of her, that I loved her, that distance had never changed how much she meant to me. I reread it before I sealed the envelope. I meant every word. When I pulled up to the restaurant after 11 hours on the road, I felt something close to hope. The place was upscale, the kind with heavy curtains in the windows and a valet stand at the front. There were gold balloons tied near the entrance and a printed sign on a stand that read, "Collins Family, Private Event." I smiled. I thought, I'm a Collins. This is my family. I belong here. Mom's face when she saw me told me everything before she said a word. Her expression didn't open up. It tightened. "Brittany, why didn't you tell me you were coming?" "It's your birthday," I said. "I wanted it to be a surprise." Lila stepped in from behind her, smooth and quick, like she had been waiting for exactly this moment. "This is a plated dinner. We paid per guest. There's no seat for you." The guests near the door had gone quiet. An aunt in a red dress whispered to someone beside her. I heard the words "wasn't invited" drift toward me like smoke. The hostess, a young woman in a black blazer, looked between me and my mother with careful eyes and asked gently, "Should I add another chair?" Mom answered before I could even open my mouth. "No, it's fine. She can just head back." I stood on that sidewalk, holding the gift bag, and I felt the concrete under my feet like I had never felt it before. Solid, cold, completely indifferent. They had planned this dinner down to every plated meal and every assigned seat, and not once, not in all those weeks of planning, had anyone thought to include me. I drove home the same night, 11 hours. I didn't stop except for gas. The next morning, I woke up and opened my phone out of habit. Mom had posted photos from the dinner, 12 of them. Everyone was smiling. The table was decorated beautifully. The caption read, "Perfect night with everyone who matters." I was not in a single photo, not because I hadn't been there, but because I had been standing outside the door. I texted her. I kept it calm. I just said I was hurt, that I wished she had handled it differently. Her reply came back in under 2 minutes. "Don't start drama." I put my phone down. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, listening to the sound of traffic outside my window. Cars moving, people going places, life continuing completely unbothered by what just happened to me. Then Lila got involved. She told relatives I had crashed the party for attention, that I had shown up unannounced to make a scene and make Mom's birthday about myself. The story spread fast. An aunt sent me a message that said simply, "You should have respected the guest list," like I was a stranger, like I was nobody. I began to doubt myself. That's the thing about being excluded by people who are supposed to love you. They make you wonder if you deserved it. I lay awake asking myself, had I been wrong to come without calling? Had I really made it worse by being there? The self-question questioning was exhausting, and it was familiar because I had been doing it my whole life every time they made me feel small. Then, about a week later, I found out about the family vacation, a summer trip, multiple families, a lake house. I found out through a photo Lila posted online, captioning it with "planning the best summer ever with my favorites." I called her. She answered on the third ring, her voice already carrying that particular lightness people use when they think they haven't done anything wrong. "You're planning a family trip and you didn't tell me?" I said. She sighed, not unkindly, which somehow made it worse. "Brittany, you chose to move away. You're not really part of this anymore. We figured you'd have your own plans." I sat with that sentence for a long time after we hung up. You're not really part of this anymore. Like belonging to a family was something that expired when you changed your zip code. Like love had a geographic requirement. But here is what changed in me that night. I stopped apologizing. I stopped explaining. I stopped sending long texts that nobody responded to. I started paying attention to what they said, and even more importantly, to what they accidentally let slip. And I made a decision that had been forming quietly inside me for 3 years. What they didn't know was that I had been building something in the dark. After client work, late at night when the apartment was quiet and the city outside had slowed to a murmur, I wrote essays about growing up feeling invisible, about the specific loneliness of being the family member everyone forgot to include, about what it costs you emotionally to keep showing up for people who treat your presence as an afterthought. I was honest, in a way that I had never been allowed to be out loud, and I published it all anonymously under a pen name. The blog grew slowly at first, then faster. I added a YouTube channel. I started talking on camera, still anonymous, still just a voice and a carefully framed shot, and people responded in a way that genuinely shocked me. Comments poured in from people saying, "This is exactly my life." Messages from strangers thanking me for words they had never heard spoken out loud before. The channel grew to 400,000 subscribers. The blog had readers in 18 countries. Ironically, a few months before my mom's birthday dinner, Leela had texted me a link to one of my own videos. Her message said, "This creator really understands toxic family dynamics." So validating. I read that message 3 times. Then I smiled, put my phone face down on the desk, and went back to editing the next episode. I said nothing. My closest ally in all of this was Megan. We had been friends since we were 9 years old. She had sat beside me at every birthday party where I felt like a guest in my own family. She had watched my mother beam at Leela's smallest accomplishments and stay perfectly silent at mine. She remembered the details I sometimes tried to forget. When I told her about the restaurant, she didn't say, "I'm sorry." She said, "Okay, what are we doing about it?" We talked for 2 hours that night. She was the one who said, "You don't have to beg for a seat at their table. Build your own." She helped me refine my channel's branding, sat with me through strategy conversations, and pushed me, gently but firmly, to consider finally going public with my identity. Meanwhile, my family had grown more comfortable with their version of events. They joked online about dramatic relatives who move far away and then expect red carpets when they visit. They posted it in a tone that was light, funny, relatable. Their followers laughed. They assumed, because I had always been quiet, that I would stay quiet. Megan looked at me one afternoon over coffee and said, "You have 400,000 people who know your voice and trust your story. That is not a small thing, Brittany." She was right, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. Mom announced a large family reunion banquet scheduled for the following month. Formal, plated dinner, guest list required. I received no invitation. The night before the reunion, I uploaded the video. The title was, "I drove 600 miles for my mom's birthday. She said I wasn't on the list." In the video, I finally showed my face. I finally said my name. I walked through the entire story, calmly, with evidence. I showed the screenshot of the restaurant photo. I showed the caption, "Perfect night with everyone who matters." I showed the text thread where I was told not to start drama. I showed the message from my aunt about respecting the guest list. I kept my voice level throughout. I did not cry. I did not perform outrage. I simply told the truth, clearly and completely. And at the end, I said, "Hi, I'm the anonymous creator you've been watching for 3 years, and this is my family." I posted it and went to sleep. By 6 in the morning, my phone had more notifications than I had ever seen in my life. By 8, the video had crossed 200,000 views. Comments flooded in, thousands of them, from people sharing their own versions of this story. Cousins who had been cut out of weddings, daughters who had been forgotten in wills, siblings who flew across the country for a reception and then handed a to-go plate. Extended family members started watching it before the reunion even started. My phone began ringing with numbers I recognized. I let them go to voicemail. Then Mom called. Her voice shook in a way I had never heard before. "Why would you do this? Why would you humiliate us like this in front of everyone?" I answered calmly. I had rehearsed nothing. The calm was just there, real, and settled inside my chest. "I didn't humiliate anyone, Mom. I told the truth." She hung up. At the reunion hall that afternoon, the whispers followed them, not me. Relatives pulled Mom aside with questions. They asked if it was real. They asked if I had really been turned away at the door. Leela tried to laugh it off, told people it was exaggerated, that that I had a history of being dramatic, but they had seen the screenshots, they had read the captions. Nobody was laughing. For the first time in my life, I was not the one standing outside the door, wondering why no one let me in. I didn't go to the reunion. I didn't need to. My platform kept growing. The video reached over 1 million views within the first week. New subscribers arrived every hour. People who knew exactly what it felt like to be the overlooked one, the one who tried hardest and got the least in return. I built something real, something mine, a community that didn't require a guest list. Weeks later, Mom sent a short message. It said, "We didn't realize how it looked." I read it twice. Then I typed back, "It didn't just look that way, Mom. It was that way." I didn't send it in anger. I sent it because it was true, and because I was done pretending otherwise to protect feelings that had never once protected mine. I stopped chasing invitations. I stopped making myself smaller to fit into spaces where I wasn't fully welcomed. I stopped driving 600 miles for people who hadn't saved me a seat. I built a life, a real one, where I was valued and not merely tolerated, where people showed up for me the way I had always shown up for everyone else. Sometimes walking away from a family that excludes you isn't about revenge. It isn't about making a point or winning an argument. It's about something quieter and more necessary than any of that. It's about self-respect. It's about finally deciding that your presence is worth something, even if the people who raised you never taught you to believe that. Have you ever been excluded by your own family? Have you ever been told you weren't on the list by the exact people who were supposed to save you a place at every table? That kind of rejection doesn't fade quickly. It settles into you and changes the way you move through the world. But so does choosing yourself. Share your story in the comments below. Tell me how it happened and how you handled it. I want to know. I read every single one. Subscribe to this channel and join a community that refuses to be left outside the door. Every hype you give this video puts it in front of someone who needs it right now. Someone who is sitting in a parking lot outside a restaurant wondering what they did wrong. Someone who deserves to hear that they didn't do anything wrong at all. Your story has power. If you felt something watching mine, please subscribe and leave your experience in the comments below. Every hype helps this reach someone who needs it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. You were always worth a seat at the table.